This is the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, the biggest, most fun podcast in the galaxy. We're Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, and we love talking all things science fiction. This is Season 4, but our human adventure is just beginning as we gather around our computer consoles to discuss the science fiction of film, television, and literature. Join us on our quest for fun and fascination as we go where no podcast has gone before. Everyone has permission to come aboard the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, but make sure to find your seat fast because we're taking off in 3, 2, 1. Hit it. This podcast is a part of the Trek Geeks Network.
A scene we'd like to see in a famous science fiction movie. Hal, open the podcast bay doors. I'm sorry, Dave. I cannot comply with that request. But Hal, it's the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Access granted. Curmudgeon. Noun. A bad-tempered, difficult, cantankerous person. This is the definition from the dictionary.com. What was missing from this Google search was the picture of the great Harlan Ellison. He is the subject of today's The Big Sci-Fi Podcast discussion. Was he all that? Oh, yes. Much and much, much more. Born in the Depression, he became one of America's greatest writers, having published over 1,700 different short stories, books, screenplays, essays, and a wide range of criticisms. Hence, we refer back to the definition of curmudgeon. I've always admired the work of Harlan. Most of my encounters with his work were in film and TV scripts that became some of the most famous of all time. For Trek fans, it's the city at the edge of tomorrow.
Forever.
Forever. Thank you.
Earlier.
See, we did it
See,
again.
we've been confusing ourselves all evening already.
Yes. The city at the edge of forever. For Outer Limits fans like myself, it's Soldier and Demon with the Glass Hand. And for me, even though we didn't write the script for this film, it is based on his novella of the same name, A Boy and His Dog. In addition, he offered some ideas for Babylon 5. He wrote an episode for the new Twilight Zone series episode Grandma, which was based on a Stephen King story. He even was involved with The Singing Nun. And Harlan was known for his lawsuits against anyone he felt had crossed him in any way. But let's talk about this great author. I refer back to our discussion, which we did earlier on a prior episode of James Cameron. But before we begin our discussion, here are the members of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast in alphabetical order, as I like to do.
Hey, it's Adina here from Atlanta today.
We're in our own time warp bubble something. Adina's not where she's supposed to be, everybody.
Not.
But that's okay. I'm Brian. I'm still stuck in Ohio. That's not really true. I'm just trying to be funny. But hey, guys, what's up?
And I'm Cris, and I'm not in Atlanta or Ohio. I'm in Toronto.
So confusing.
Ooh.
And of course, I'm your host today, Steve Merkin, hailing from the city of North Hollywood. Not Hollywood, but that's okay. Anything you guys want to talk about first before we jump into our discussion about Mr. Ellison?
Oh, I'm so anxious to get into this.
Yeah, me too. I've got some thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
I know one. Yeah, you know what? I know it's going to timestamp us a little bit, but Strange New Worlds is the time of this recording is about to come out, so that's tomorrow actually, per this recording, which is on the 14th. I might have to edit this part out, but I don't care. I'm excited.
That's okay.
I'm going to watch it bright and early in the morning.
I'm excited too.
Based on that statement, I know we will be discussing it during the series as it progresses, so that's quite all right.
And if I'm right, they should be traveling in Toronto in, I don't know what episode it will be, but they should be appearing. The real Captain Kirk will be here because they're time traveling.
Okay.
I kid, but I think that's an episode. It looks like it was filmed in Toronto, so I'm very curious about it.
Interesting.
Cool.
All right.
I might have to wait a few days because I'm not at home. I might have to wait a few days before I can see the first episode. Just based on traveling and I might have to wait.
Well,
Might have to wait.
we'll spoil it for you in our messenger
No.
chat. We'll spoil the heck out of it.
Well, I have to quickly watch it because I'm leaving this weekend for Europe for 3 weeks. I will be
Oh
missing
my
you
goodness.
folks. I'll be missing a couple episodes with you folks, which will be terrible, but it is what it is. But I will be probably tonight watching episode 10 of the first season of Strange New Worlds, just as a help my wife and get a refresher to watch the new
That's a
episode.
good idea.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
a
really
good
good idea.
episode.
Just to
That's
see
a
that
heavy one.
transition, because that number 10 has a lot to it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's certainly. By the way, non-science fiction, but are there any Arnold Schwarzenegger fans in the Zoom room?
I
Aw.
enjoy him. He's always fun
Yeah.
to watch.
I mean,
Totally.
Terminator.
I love
and
him.
His comedy. Yeah.
Check out his new series on Netflix.
Oh, is it Snafu or what's it?
Fubar.
No,
Fubar.
Fubar, which
Okay.
we cannot. Well, yeah,
It's-
we
I
really
don't know.
shouldn't say what the initials mean or
Yes,
Right, that's
no.
yes.
expression.
But
People can look that up, for
Look,
themselves.
yeah,
if they
it's
wanna
your
know
own-
Fubar. If
it's
they've
your
never
own risk.
heard Fubar.
Yeah.
but really fun series. I was very skeptical. My wife and I we watched 2 episodes. I think there's 10 episodes. We watched 2 episodes 5 nights in a row, and we're looking forward to it. It's funny, it's ridiculous, it's awesome, and Schwarzenegger is really great in it. So
That's great.
So
I appreciate
speaking
that.
of funny,
Mhm.
ridiculous Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff, my husband discovered someone is putting out videos on the internet where they're replacing scenes in movies or TV shows with Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and voice,
Oh my
So-
gosh.
Okay.
including one was from The Wizard of Oz. He's playing
Right.
Dorothy and
Oh my
singing
God.
Over the Rainbow. And then there was another one with a scene from Seinfeld with Elaine and the Soup Nazi. It's
Okay.
Oh my God. Like you have to find, like, I don't know
I need to
what
see
it's
this.
called, but you have to find it. You just Google like Arnold Schwarzenegger Seinfeld and you'll probably find it.
Does he
Okay.
play the soup Nazi? I hope.
He's like whatever
Oh my
whatever
God.
characters are in the scene, it's Arnold with Arnold's voice, his face and voice, but like everything else, like within it's Elaine's hair, with the whole like the way the eyes move, and the way like the expressions are still the expressions filmed in the scene. It's pretty awesome tech. It's hilarious.
So are you
Okay, cool.
saying this is a good use for AI in?
I'm saying this is an awesome use of technology, yes.
Okay.
For fun stuff like that, yes.
Yeah. Yes. That's great. All
Anyway,
right. Well,
I'm sorry.
with
You
all
guys
that-
you guys brought up Arnold, so I had to mention it.
I
That's-
did.
no,
Guilty as charged.
That's okay. Our listeners will appreciate once they have a chance to watch it, I'm certain. So, without further ado, let's talk about Mr. Harlan Ellison, if you don't mind. And I guess to begin with, what films or TV shows have you seen that involved him in? I did give you a list of a couple that make a difference in my life, but for any of you, tell me what you have seen or acknowledged of his work besides Star Trek, or mostly Star Trek if you want.
Well, that's the thing is, given he was so prolific and involved in so many things, I'm not sure. I think there's more things that he was responsible for than we probably know without really having a handy list. I'm dying to talk about City on the Edge of Forever, though. I mean, I can wait. But
No.
dying to
That's
talk about it.
fine, Medine. And actually, there was one list of everything he had touched,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it is extensive. As I said, even having touched the singing nun of all TV shows. So, it's pretty amazing.
Yep. City on the Edge of Forever is classic. It's beautiful. And it's one of the great all-time Trek episodes even now. I mean, I think you have to put it on a top 10 list, if at all possible. Also, Steve, because you sent a link and said something about it and you talked about it before, I had to watch The Demon with the Glass Hand. And I have to say, it is one of the best hours of sci-fi I've ever seen. Black and white, amazing story. It's got it's low budget, from its era, but it is such a masterful, interesting, intriguing, even, what's the word I'm looking for? Disturbing story.
Mhm.
It's just got a little bit of everything. And it's absolutely marvelous. Stop when you're done listening to this podcast, look up Demon with the Glass Hand, because it is absolutely unbelievable.
I definitely I do want to see it.
Yeah, I really do. When I first saw it, again, I saw The Outer Limits when it was live, released on TV. And Brian, you'll appreciate this. You did watch it. In the last scenes, when Trent finally realizes and he learns that he is a robot. Oh, I'm sorry, Adina gave that away.
It's
sorry.
Okay. Well, here's a good chance that I've seen.
Yeah.
There's a good chance over the years I've seen it. Right.
When he finds he's a robot, and then he reaches out to Consuela, who was played by Arlene. What was her last name? She actually Arlene Martell. Who was Spock's fiance in Amok Time.
Oh,
yes.
I thought I recognized her.
Yes, that's her. And when he reaches out with his hand to her and she pulls it back, and then she walks away, no words are said. And I as a child, I cried because I thought, this guy is going to spend the next 1,200 years before his next function is done, all alone. With no love, with no friends, with nothing. It affected me as a child, and it's still, as you see, as you said, it's really powerful.
When he realizes he is a robot, because he didn't know that until that moment.
Mm-hmm.
He just thought he was a human that had this prosthetic glass hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That had the secrets to everything and all the answers he needed for humanity. When he realizes that and he looks into her face and sees the rejection, sees the fear, the fright, the what in the world, and then her ultimate rejection of him as she just walks away without saying a word, like, ugh. That's not just good storytelling. I mean, the acting to portray that was superb, and the cinematography too, very good. So
I think that was shot by Conrad Hall, who did a couple films like American Beauty and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I believe that's who shot that particular episode. But again, it's not just the writing, but you said the Bradbury building where it's all shot, which is the same building that was used in Blade Runner.
Okay, you mentioned that. I was going to ask you about the building is beautiful.
It is a personality. The building has a personality because of the open-aired style that it is. It adds to the story. And early in the episode when Consuela says to Trent, I think I'm falling in love with you. You think, like, oh my God, this is a love story. And it turns out, it's not. It's a story of loneliness and knowing that you only have one function in your life. It's to revive humanity. 1,200 years. Go ahead.
Let me push back a little bit, Steve, because and this is, of course, all in good fun and friendliness. But I think you could still, understanding what you're saying, I still would put it in the category of a love story. It's just sometimes love stories don't end the way we want them to. Obviously, Hollywood love stories, not always real life, hardly ever. So the fact
you're right.
would have this traumatic event bring them together. I mean, he almost had to kill her. I mean, he would have had to kill her early on when he meets her if she was going to make a noise and reveal where he was in the building. He might have had to have done that. Correct. And so to go from there to where they're going through this traumatic experience and he is in essence protecting her and guiding her through this, and she comes to help him several times, or at least a couple times,
right,
and saves him. It's there's great that can draw people together, and I think it made it even more impacting that at the end, ultimately, when she realizes what he is, she just can't handle that. You know?
She's, I can't love a robot. I thought this was a man, and it's not. It's
what's beautiful is you say that, but she didn't. There was no words.
No.
After she realized he was a robot, she didn't say another. She didn't have another word of dialogue. It was all in the face. It was all in her walking away.
Like in the walking away, was it a contempt?
No, it's
or
her.
No,
like a was it no, was it sadness?
shock, surprise. I think a smidge, Steve. Maybe you probably have an opinion, but a smidge of revulsion.
Yes, absolutely. No, the
Um,
look on her face was like, oh,
Who are you?
who are you? And how could I be love something like that, a machine? It's very compelling. What's interesting, and again with Harlan and his lawsuit against, I think it's called Hemsdale Films, the company that made the Terminator. He always said that they stole from the episode of Soldier, which I did give you a link to that one as well, which if you have a chance, watch that, of course. But really, Demon of the Glass Hand, which he said, oh, no, that wasn't the episode. But the concept of Schwarzenegger being a robot that looks like a human, that's covered with skin to make him more presentable and acceptable.
Is this the first time this ever happened in television?
No, that predates, because Asimov did that a ton in his writing before Outer Limits was ever produced.
Well,
so
and even the robot in Metropolis,
yeah,
she takes on the form of a woman over that.
Yeah.
But again,
so no, Harlan is not can't claim that he gets that, because no, he did not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
But and again, when you have a chance to also watch Soldier, you'll see, how it opens and how Ellison, when he saw the Terminator, he went, whoa. That's my story. What's going on here? And it wasn't, I know. I mean, Brian, in the world of music, there's a certain amount of music you can use that you can kind of steal from somebody else. And use as your own, right?
There are there are only so many chords,
right,
and musical notes, and occasionally they are going to be used in the same sequence. And what matters is rhythm, and what matters is dynamic, and what matters is inflection, and all those things, and little nuances within the music. And there are certainly times when people have had real cases of somebody stealing something for the sake of their own music, and of course, literature, film, whatever. But I think that with music, it is so nuanced. And honestly, like, when was the last time you heard a truly original idea?
Yeah, it's all in the details and implementation and everything. So, and again, it's one of the things that they tell you when you want to write and be a writer is read why, read a lot of stuff, read in your genre, read widely, read stuff. So, and that's the whole thing. Reading all of that kind of fuels new things and putting ideas together in new ways and creating new details and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think, again, what the word curmudgeon is a good. He was someone who liked to get, I don't know. And, when I read about some of the story, things that he was involved in with the lawsuits and everything, and just some of the issues he was involved with. And, on one hand, I would have liked to have met him. On the other hand, maybe not so much.
There was an episode where there was a time when I went to a Star Trek convention in Las Vegas, and it was the last time he had gone to one. And I had brought my Outer Limits companion book with me because I wanted him to sign it, and I wanted to thank him for those 2 episodes of the Outer Limits. And I missed him, and I said, well, wait a minute, he's supposed to be here at 1:00. Where is he? And the person said, Harlan, if he doesn't want to do it, he ain't going to do it. And I went, great. I missed my opportunity to meet the man, but I was really looking forward to meeting him. I don't know if I met him and I said, thank you so much. He'd go, yeah, so what? Who knows?
Yeah, how he would have been. Who knows?
Yeah, you might get in line with all the rest of the people want to say thank you to me. I don't know. But still, it would have been a pleasure. And as far as Arlene Martell, I think I mentioned one time before, I was at a small convention here in Los Angeles, and she was here, and I came up to her and I thanked her for Demon with the Glass Ham, and she was just like, "Oh my, thank you so much," because everybody thinks of her as from Star Trek. But
isn't that interesting? One episode of a show can be what everybody remembers you for.
Yeah.
And loves you for too. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just.
Well, we do it with a lot of Star Trek folks,
Yeah.
right?
We've done it on our show.
Indeed. Yes, we do.
We're guilty.
Interviewed some one hit wonders or whatever you want to call them that. But
So speaking of Star Trek, can we talk about City on the Edge of Forever?
Let's talk about.
I'm dying.
Let's talk about that. As long as you don't go crazy like Dr. McCoy, okay? You're fine with us.
No. So, well, here's what I want to say. So, if for folks who might not be super Trek people who are listening, we should probably just kind of give a rundown of this amazing episode, which is generally regarded as one of the best Star Trek original series episodes.
Did it win a Hugo Award?
I think it did. Yes, I
try
think
to
it did.
remember.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah,
okay. I think it did. But what's her name? Oh my! Now you guys got me blanking on things.
Oh,
was the guest star?
Yeah.
What is happening to my brain?
It's one of those episodes.
Anyway, it's this amazing episode where, McCoy accidentally goes back in time, and Kirk and Spock deliberately go back in time to get him back and hopefully fix the timeline. And while they're back, Kirk, they meet this woman. The character's name is Edith Keeler.
Joan Collins.
John
Thank
Collins.
you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
you beat me to it. Yeah.
And they meet her, and he kind of falls for her a little bit, but and I'm gonna get spoiler alert for a 6-year-old show. He has to, because this is really important. He has to let her die at the end. Spock comes up with some information and says that's kind of like one of the key things to fixing the timeline is letting her die, and that's pretty important. And so and Kirk wrestles with that, and then he ultimately has to, and they all go home to live in theory happily ever after in a fixed, restored timeline.
But remember, what triggered them was that when McCoy went through, everything changed. Even though they were on the planet, but there was no more Enterprise. There was no
right. So they had to. They were stranded if they didn't fix this.
Correct.
They had to try. But so now so the Harlan Ellison. So he wrote the original screenplay that got modified quite a bit, and he was unhappy with the result. And there was, I think, there were issues and problems over the fact that he was unhappy with that. So what's interesting is, again, then the result on screen, it was one of the best Trek episodes ever. A few years ago, in 2014, Harlan had published a graphic novel. It was really actually a series of about 5 comic books. Based on his original screenplay. And so if you read the introduction to it, it talks about how happy he was with the graphic novel, with this comic book interpretation of it, that it was very true to, it was what he had intended. So, and it's available on Amazon as a Kindle Unlimited. So I did read that this week.
Oh, wow.
And oh my God, it's not long. I mean, it's like 5 comic books. So it's not long. It's not lengthy prose. It's and everything, but is what I have to say. We have to talk about like the differences here, because
you have to explain them since you've read them. Yeah, because we only know what we saw on TV. Right. Well, first run or 15th run.
Well, what you saw on TV was fabulous. If this was his original screenplay, there's a few things there. Like, one, it's too long for a single episode.
Right.
It really doesn't. It misses, like in episodic television, there are beats you need to hit, to get through and have a whole arc of a show in one episode. And he misses it. There's like too many extra scenes. And then the most grievous thing is Spock. He did not capture Spock well at all in the dialogue. He really overdid, so Spock comments on the barbarism in the past. He did so in Star Trek. Every time Spock goes to the past, he comments. But Spock just comments. He doesn't keep commenting and keep commenting and keep commenting. He kind of comments once and lets it go. Where Wilson, his original, is Spock kind of really, no, he's not Spock. The way he speaks, it's just not him. And it's not McCoy that got sick and went down to the planet. It's another random crew member that they had to bring back. So it's not McCoy. it's just so, and there's extended stuff between like when they go back, they find a different, they don't meet Edith Keeler right away. They run into someone else and they get a job somewhere else. And there's a whole extended thing with Edith Keeler. It's again, it's all wrong. It's like it's the whole reason why there are first drafts and then second and third and fourth, and why things do get revised. So it's like it's almost like Harlan, couldn't stand anyone to critique or touch his work. If it's like his kind of like his stuff doesn't stink. His stuff can't stink. But this was really not the way he wrote it. It was not a great Star Trek episode.
Well, it did win a Hugo Award.
What you read? Oh, really? Yeah, that's very interesting.
It did win a Hugo Award in '68 for best dramatic presentation.
Yeah, what we saw on screen was fantastic, freaking tastic.
Mm-hmm.
But what he originally wrote was not. It needed help. It needed help to really make it a Star Trek episode, a good Star Trek episode.
But maybe in his mind, in Harlan's mind,
yeah,
this was a good Star Trek episode because he thought it was. And I mean, even when we talked to David Gerald and we discussed about the trouble with triples, even didn't he say that his script went through a rewrite from what he originally submitted, because you got to write to commercial breaks. Mm-hmm. The action has to be able to stop or carry you over past the Wheaties commercial to the next, to where they go from that point there on. And so if it's, as you said, much longer in time, covers a lot more material, then it had to be whittled down to be able to fit a 40, well, actually back then it was 52 minutes, I think, of airtime.
No, and what they did put on the screen was nice, and honestly, it was concise. It was tight.
Mm-hmm.
Where what was in this graphic novel was, it was just, again, it was too lengthy. It was lengthy.
And
it's worth seeing. I would still recommend any Trekkie or any Harlan Ellison fan to do their own, read and compare. It's still worth reading. I'm not saying don't read it. I'm saying absolutely read it. It's kind of cool to see how things start. Where do things start? Where do they wind up? And that's kind of a cool process to see. And you can clearly see it here. You can clearly let's take this random crew member out and let's put Dr. McCoy in,
But if you make it Dr. McCoy, it's more personal to Kirk and to Spock to have to go into the what was the device called again?
The Guardian of Forever.
The Guardian of Forever.
The Guardian.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's take the random crew member out, put McCoy in, to shorten that up, and eliminate having an extra character that we don't care about, really don't care about them. And then when they get back to the past, have them meet Edith Keeler right away, not introduce whole nother group of, character, a whole nother way of they're getting a job. And, it was just this whole extra, take that out. You're the edits, the changes that were made were good changes that tightened the whole thing up.
Yeah.
So, but it was really interesting to compare, and also to kind of read, at the beginning. What's also interesting is, so at the beginning, reading Harlan's intro to it, and basically saying how he was happy with this. He didn't mention his unhappiness with the original, but he mentioned how happy he was with this. And also for people who also enjoy behind the scenes stuff, there was a whole thing at the very end just on how the two people who I guess illustrated and made this comic stuff, their process. And so there's several pages at the end explaining their process on how they storyboarded it and did it. And I like behind the scenes stuff. So for people who like behind the scenes stuff, that was kind of cool too.
Well, it's very interesting because the 2 episodes from The Outer Limits, the screen credit says Harlan Ellison, and then it says Leslie Stevens, who was a scriptwriter and showrunner for The Outer Limits. And for Soldier, it gives him credit. For Demon with the Glass Can, it says uncredited. So even whatever, who knows? I mean, probably the same situation was the original script he wrote for those 2 episodes had to be modified to fit the format of a television show with the right pacing and everything. And I'd love to be able to see, well, actually, They are bringing back the scripts from the original, from the Outer Limits, and I'm hoping to be able to get a hold of those too. Hopefully, they're in the original form, or they explain the differences, the nuances between what was originally delivered and what was actually seen on TV.
It's got to be a hard writing assignment. Like you've got to have, I would guess, just have a gift for writing for television, where you can't bring in all the nuances you would if you were writing a story as a short story or a novella or a novel. You have to really hone in on what is most important, what progresses the story characters along. That would be immensely difficult, because even though he did do a lot of television, right? He was also a story writer. He was an author. Way before this. So that had to be hard. And then you're talking about studios that are looking for specific things that their whole, like you said, one of you guys said it, they're always chopping away. They're always cutting. They're always revisioning and bringing up new versions of scripts. And then we heard Bruce Norak say that in television, sometimes you get changes very quick before you're about to shoot something. So it's the nature of quote unquote beasts. And so for someone that was very picky like Harlan, it sounds like it had to be really difficult.
And what the point is that you may be a novelist and a writer, but it doesn't mean you'll become a script writer. You look at someone like Rod Serling. That was a man who was a script writer, and he could pound them out. Of all the episodes of the Twilight Zone, he wrote 93 of them. Plus, he wrote movie scripts and other TV scripts. So if maybe you're a script writer to begin with, you already have the tools in your tool chest to be able to write a script that can go right to production. But if you're a author and you write a script and you write like an author, which means I have 300 pages to work with, or I have 500 pages to work with, and they say, no, you have to write this in about 60 pages. Maybe there's a lot of screaming or sweating or going, I can't take out this because I love this portion, but it's superfluous. It's just moving the story along. It's not.
Yeah. It's a truly different kind of, they're different writing techniques that work. And just because you're good at one doesn't mean you're good at other. But what's I guess I want to say sad is because I feel like it just then causes people, so much agita is like, so, if you don't recognize like that you need help in a different, like just because you're good in one domain doesn't mean you're good in all the domains. And like you would save everyone a lot of agita if you just kind of recognize that and like accepted the help. Because look what City on the Edge of Forever became. It became this amazing episode.
Absolutely amazing. Like, and also, I don't know how you feel, Adina. I can't remember if you said this or not, one way or the other, but you're an author. You write books. And if it's ever adapted, Adina writes, folks, and she's got 4 books out right now. The Robot Galaxy series. Check it out on Amazon and everywhere you find. And I've got a book out called The Darkness and the Light. It's available on Amazon and whatever. And but like I feel like if anybody were to ever get a hold of my book and my story, The Darkness and the Light, and say we want to adapt this either for television or for film, I'm gonna say please write me a big fat check and go for it. I am not going to care to be a part of that process.
It depends. I'm going to say it really depends, because honestly, like I want to be a part of the process because I'm curious as to how it really works. I might not have the stomach for it, in the sense of, one of the reasons why I chose to be an indie author is because I had a traditional publishing experience a few years ago where they published something of mine and we argued over things like I had effectively a self-published memoir from my retail stores, and a traditional publisher offered to pick it up and republish it. And I said, sure, why not? Until then it got time for them to redo the cover and rename it.
Mm.
And we argued over the name, and ultimately I lost. I was very, very, very unhappy with their choice of renaming, and lost. And that this is one of the things that has driven me to to be an indie publisher now, where while it's more work, I have ultimate control over everything I do, and I like that. So I wonder how much I would have the stomach for that kind of collaborative thing when it's my work involved.
Right.
I feel like I could certainly collaborate with a group of people on a new work, but something that I've already put out there that I already am very attached to the characters and the plot and everything in the universe.
That's why I say write me a big fat check. I'm going to let it go, it go, and I'm going to let it be whatever it's going to be. And hopefully it'll be fabulous and make lots of money. I'll get lots more money in the end.
What you want to do? I was saying what you want. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
I was going to say what you wanted, Brian, is for them to say what my next door neighbor John says. You could just quickly say, "Put the money under the door. Now go away." That's all you want in life.
Yeah, I'll let it go.
But then I look at what's happening right now, and so if people haven't seen it yet, there is a Silo TV series on Apple. And it's based on another science fiction author, Hugh Howey. It's based on his, stories. And he started off as an indie author too. Mm-hmm. And, so in addition to, so I'm not sure exactly how involved he was in the process of getting it, on screen. I mean, I know he was involved, and he does have an executive producer credit. I would love to have an executive producer credit. I think that would be like the coolest thing ever. But I'd love to actually be involved in it. But also when I see his stuff is Silos, I've been watching it and I'm hoping that I'm hoping I can get you guys to watch it too. Even if we're not, if I can't get you to read the books, hopefully I can get you to watch it. And the books, anyone who also loves, written science fiction, the Silo series by Hugh Howey is amazing. It's awesome. It's dystopian, but it's just so good. Well, this adaptation is so true to his books. It's incredible. It's probably one of the most true to written adaptations I've seen in anything in forever.
That's amazing.
It is incredible.
Can you give us a little synopsis of what it is?
Okay.
Because
sure.
The word alone, silo, invokes too many thoughts.
Well, yeah. So there's a group of people, 10,000 people living in an underground silo. They do not know who created the silo. They do not know anything about their past history. They do not know what's outside the silo.
Wow.
Jiminy Christmas.
It's good. It is so good.
That's really very interesting.
Both the TV show, both the TV show and the books are so good. So good.
No, that's great.
I'm going to guess that I'm going to try to find the books first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, look for the Wool Omnibus or Silo series. It started with this book Wool that originally was like a 20-something thousand word novella, and it was so good. People clamored for more, and he wrote more, and it's just, oh my God, it's just so good.
Now, the other thing that I had mentioned as I wrote to you folks the outline was a film called A Boy and His Dog, which was based on a novella by Harlan Ellison. He didn't write the script. The script was written by the director, L.Q. Jones. And it does diverge a lot from the original novella, which I have here at the house. I've read both. I watched the movie. But the spirit of Harlan Ellison, his cantankerousness, his curmudgeonness is portrayed by a scruffy little dog named Blood. And I put the I gave you the link. If you have a chance to watch it, please. No kids in the room. Okay.
Okay.
This is well, when I went to go see it, or I didn't intend to go see it. Let's put it that way. I went to 50-hour science fiction movie marathon in conjunction with 1975 LA Filmex. And when they gave us the list of all the movies we were going to see during this 50 hours, included This Island Earth, 2001: A Space Odyssey, War of the Worlds, even a horrible movie called Idaho Transfer. Ooh, don't even. Very, very bad. Very bad. But the very first film we got to see before it was released in the theaters was A Boy and His Dog. And we're all in line going, what is this? A Disney film? Forget it.
The title does not invoke science fiction, and that's probably why I haven't seen it, because
Yeah.
because I feel like I've always heard the name, but I don't think I've ever associated that with a science fiction film, because it just doesn't invoke the thought of science fiction just based on the name.
It's extremely dystopian. It takes place after World War IV.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the
John F. Kennedy's still alive.
What?
Okay.
John F.
Really?
Kennedy is still alive in the novel, at least.
Oh, really? Okay, in the novellas. Yeah, it's been a long time since I read that. It is I forget what year he wrote the original novella, but the film came out in 1875. So, but you can see his style there. You could, even though he didn't write the script, you can still see that they invoked his style. And yes, there's a lot of subject that's in it that is brought forward into the film. It's another one of those, movies that came out that you didn't know what it was, and then you watch it and it got remarkable awards for the quality of the film. It gave Don Johnson a start. He was a young actor, and this was, I believe, his first roles. Yes. So
the novella won a Nebula Award.
Mm-hmm.
And a Hugo, and was a Hugo Award finalist. So
yeah, it's really dark. It's very dark, but it's worth watching.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I would put it on your list. But again, it's one of those films that came out in the 70s when there was a lot of dystopian films like The Omega Man, and you had Soylent Green, and you had Silent Running, and all these films where things don't end very well or very good for the main characters or characters in the story or humanity as a whole. So it was perfect. Maybe when L.Q. Jones read the novella, he goes, "This is right in line with what Hollywood is looking for right now in film." So that's one worth seeing. But yeah, it did. So none of us have ever met him. Then we've never had the chance to meet.
Nope. I guess the closest I've come is, I did meet Isaac Asimov. Well, I saw Isaac Asimov at a convention in a year or two before he passed away. So that'd be the closest thing.
Did you really?
Since,
yeah.
Yeah. So 2 degrees of separation, kind of.
Yeah.
Or 1 degree of separation.
And I did meet one time, as I said, many podcasts ago, where I met Rod. Excuse me. Man who did Fahrenheit 451.
Ray Bradbury.
Ray Bradbury. Thank you. And all I did was I just wanted to ask him one question: how do you start writing? So if you had a chance to meet him, maybe is there a question you would want to ask him, even hypothetically? He's not around. Maybe his spirit is amongst us. We don't know. Yeah.
I would ask him.
Yes.
What his favorite food is. I don't know what I would ask the man.
If he said pizza, I'd be happy,
Right.
Or blueberries.
It depends on if I was let's say he was still alive today and I'm meeting him now versus if I had in real life had a more realistic opportunity to meet him 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because what I know a lot more now about him and his work than I did 20 years ago. So I probably 20 years ago would have asked a very naive question and had my butt handed to me,
yes.
Where today I would be able to probably, because I'd be armed with knowledge. I'd ask a more, I don't know, I don't know what I really don't know what I would ask him today.
Yeah, well, it's just like, would you say, "Oh, I just want to thank you for sitting at," and he's going to go, well, get in line. Everybody else is doing it too,
Well, maybe I would have, maybe I'd buy a copy of the comic book that he was happy with and asked him to sign in. Just leave it at that.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be very cool.
And just say, so in, so there was this compilation, this short story compilation he put together back in the 70s, 80s, Dangerous Visions. I get the name right? Yeah. So I have that. I have the ebook version of that. And the second edition, because there's a second forward. So Isaac Asimov wrote the forward to the first one, and then he wrote the forward to the second one. And in it, so the forwards themselves are really interesting because Asimov explained how they first met, and basically it's really I love Isaac Asimov, and what's really funny is in a lot of science fiction novels, and maybe other things do this too, but I find this a lot in science fiction. There's explanations, like where people tend to explain things about how they wrote the story or whatever. And I usually don't care to read a lot of those for some reason. I'm just happy. Let me just read the story. Maybe I'll read this other matter later. But a lot of science fiction authors, I find, and I apologize because maybe I'm one of these thrown on a little bit about that explanation part. Like I don't want the explanation. I just want to read the story. The one author that I can read any of that stuff, I enjoy it. I enjoy his style. Is Asimov. So if I ever see forward by or introduction by Asimov, I'm in to at least read that.
Tolkien kind of does that too, I think.
A lot of people do that.
Novel, there's the explanation in the backstories is just long, and I don't enjoy that. I've tried to read through that several times in different of his stories.
Even in this Dangerous Visions, where Ellison writes of why he's putting this compilation together, it's like, dude, you could have explained this in one page. Why are you going on for like 10 pages on this? There's one paragraph in that. So I did read it. There's one paragraph in that where he's like, basically they found that at the time in science fiction in all the different magazines, even though science fiction is supposed to be very speculative and forward thinking and all these things, they were feeling that a lot of the editors at the time were not being not as broad speaking or broad vision, broad-minded. Yes, I guess that's a way to put it. As they would have liked. There's and possibly to no fault of their own. They're just I don't know. They're just a little narrow-minded. So they put together this collection. It's an amazing collection of stories. But I'm getting off the point. The point is in Asimov's introduction, he explains how him and Harlan Ellison met, and Harlan Ellison basically insulted him right off the bat in a funny way. And so I encourage y'all to read that yourself. It's kind of funny.
Well, when we interviewed David Gerald, didn't he talk about Ellison and how he admired him, or they were good friends? And they were both kind of a curmudgeon type of a guy.
Yeah, so. It's either kind of like, it seems like you either, it's one of those guys, you either absolutely loved him or you absolutely did not. There's no in between there. And that's the thing is, and I think there is something to kind of like certain personality types, because even J. Michael Straczynski, haven't met him, but I've read his autobiography, and J. Michael Straczynski, he's in charge of Harlan Ellison's estate these days, and they got along. And also Straczynski's, I think he seems less curmudgeonly than others, but yet he's definitely introverted with some quirks, So I can see it. I can see them all go together. And again, and it's opposite Asimov. Asimov was not like that.
No,
he was very friendly.
Yeah,
very So it's kind of interesting, and maybe Asimov worked because he was just like a generation older. And a little bit more, was already a well-known, revered science fiction author by the time like Ellison was like a teenager. It's just that.
Well, you have to, you got to say the thing about Asimov is any man who can write the science fiction he did and limericks is pretty open-minded fellow.
Yeah. Well, but I think he was an easy. He was not ever like that curmudgeon-y. He was just jovial. I'm going to say he's jovial.
Yeah, that's a good description. Well, I think we've chatted about Mr. Ellison about as far as we can go. Any final thoughts, or shall we wrap this up?
I just want to thank you, Steve, for sending us a link to that episode. I'm going to watch Soldier too.
Please do. I'd like to know.
I might watch more of The Outer Limits too, because I have never really watched all those. I've seen a couple things here and there, but Demon with the Glass Hand was just phenomenal. I'm telling you guys, it's black and white.
It's film noir. It's film noir.
Yeah, it is
the lighting.
So good. You will be shocked at how much you like this episode. It's worth knowing about historically.
And the same thing for Soldier. When you watch it and you learn about the soldier Quarlo from the future, you go, this is where protection of your fellow man becomes so important, or have you build relationships with someone who's from the future, who doesn't understand our society, and we don't understand his society, growing up in a world that's only driven by war. And that's what makes it so interesting. Well, I guess we could spend much more time reviewing all of his films and TV shows and books and so on about Mr. Ellison, but we have to keep it to a minimum. So if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us about Harlan, please do so by writing to our email address, thebigsci-fi podcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook and Instagram pages. View our shorts on YouTube, or definitely go to Trek Geeks for all our episodes and those of our fellow podcasters. They are all a part of this website. Thank you again, and I leave you with these parting words, as I always do. Keep watching the skies. Live long and prosper.